This is Ready Set Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination. And on this Ready Set Reiki journey, we refer to ourselves as guides rather than hosts, as we too are traveling, supporting each other, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I'm your first guide, Tracy C. Wright.
And I'm your second guide, Dina's Fortune.
And joining us on this journey today is Faye Johnstone. Now, she combines over 20 years of Reiki practice with elemental qigong, plant medicine, and creative shamanism to connect us with the healing power of nature for our own personal transformation, as well as studying herbal medicine. That she ran an organic flower and herb farm in Nova Scotia for some years before returning to the UK and settling in Scotland. The path of the drum and Reiki has led Faye to connect even more deeply with nature and plants. The author of 3 books, Plant Reiki Spirit, Plants That Speak, Souls That Sing, and her latest book, Shamanic Reiki Drumming, she offers trainings and retreats from her garden in Scotland and has an online community with monthly offerings. Welcome, Faye, to Ready Set Reiki.
Hi, it's really great to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, let's begin our journey together. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I feel like you've given me quite a good intro there. So I have been in the sort of Reiki world, if you like, for over 20 years. And just on, as you mentioned, it's the healing journey. And so what my journey has led me to work with, I've been guided by the plants. And also I've the shamanic, my practice of creative shamanism has really been key in opening up my ability, if you like, to connect. So I now live in Scotland, as you said, and I have a beautiful garden here on just north of Edinburgh, on the coast. And this is where I've kind of landed, and this is where I work from, and I run I suppose where I'm at the moment with my work is I love to really go deep dive with people. And so I offer kind of one-to-one retreats here. We have a beautiful yurt in the garden space as well, and as well as offering trainings and events here and online as well. But that's where I'm at really with my work. I always really listening and expanding into, who I never thought I could be, basically. So that's where I'm at.
Beautiful. So when did Reiki or energy work come into your life? Did you find it or did it find you?
It totally found me. And I feel this is a theme for my whole, if you like, spiritual path. I'm a really slow learner. Like, I'm not one of those people, or I should say I used to be. I've got much better at that. I'm much better now at really listening to the nudges when they first come, not like the 100th nudge that you get from spirit, And it sort of fell into it. I fell into it. A friend one weekend said, "Hey, do you want to learn this thing called Reiki?" And explained to me what it was. And I was like, "Yeah, sure." From then on, even my first shamanic experience came in a very similar way. It was a friend and I said, "Hey, well, what are you doing tonight?" And the friend responded saying, "Well, I'm going to see my shaman. I'm going to a shamanic ceremony." And I was like, "Well, sure. Can I come too?" So in a sense, I feel that my friends of mine, people I network with, my friends and family are my teachers, and they are the ones who kind of say, "Hey, dive into this." And so, yeah, I've been on that Reiki journey ever since 2000, and it just has it's really opened me up to discover more and more about who I truly am. And this is and so that's why I've been led to connect with plants, led to connect with all the shamanic techniques that I use. And I'm constantly, if you like, in this expanding space of discovery and who I am. And that has led me to write the books that you mentioned. To date, I've written 3 books, and I write every day. And I never thought in a million years I would write a book. And there you go, I've written 3. So I think it's really fascinating, and I'm sure everybody listening who's connected to Reiki, it's just so fascinating, isn't it? How when we let Reiki flow through us, when we become Reiki, it really shapes our lives in ways that we could never have imagined. So that's my path with Reiki, and it's still evolving. And I love to teach as well. I started. And this is the thing about my path. Like I say, I'm not necessarily a slow learner, but I'm a slow burner. So I did my Reiki master teacher training in 2009. So that was kind of 9 years after I'd been attuned to Reiki 1. And I always say to my students, look, there is no rush. If you feel called to do it, then get on and do it. But just Reiki 1 is absolutely enough. It's Reiki. But then you see, after kind of getting my master training, it took me ages really to get myself together to start teaching. And when I moved, we lived in Canada, as you mentioned, in Nova Scotia. And when we moved back to Scotland, I thought to myself, oh, I'm not going to be teaching Reiki anymore. That's kind of done. I'll just be going on with the next project, whatever that is. And sure enough, we lived in a very small 2-bedroom flat, an apartment, as you'd say in the States. And we had weekends where we've got 6 people trying to fit into my living room space. Some are sitting on, one person's on the couch, someone's on the floor, someone's on a reclining chair, and it was like Reiki showing me you don't have to have the fancy yoga studio or the massive gorgeous house with these beautiful sacred spaces. Like, if you're meant to be doing this, people are going to show up for you. And that was my experience. So I'm just kind of like, and I laugh if ever I say, oh, I'm not doing this, or I'm not going to do this, I don't plan on doing this. I feel like the universe or Reiki is going, well, actually, we've got another plan for you. So in a sense, I can't wait to see or experience what Reiki has in store for us all, because I feel, and you probably sense it as well in your community, Reiki is really changing. Over 20 years I've been in this space, and what I find, it's amazing. Sorry, I realize I'm going on and on, but I'm just on a roll. What I find now is when I'm teaching, the students are just so open and so connected, like, already. Whereas it wasn't like that when I first started teaching, and certainly when I started, when I learned Reiki, I feel like I wasn't as sensitive and connected and intuitively as some of my students are. Like, now they're instantly, they get it, they've got it, which is incredible. And I think that just shows how we're all evolving, and our consciousness is just, we're really attuning to, the powerful people or beings that we truly are.
I love it. I love it all. And thank you for putting out there that, it took you a few years. Many come here and they want it right away. They want it now, but you took your time, and that's that divine timing. And then also, mentioning you don't need to rent that big space. You don't have to have that yoga studio. If that's a blockage that you don't know where to go, having it in your home, and they'll come. If they want to do it, they're going to come.
Yeah, because I definitely had that blockage previously. I really thought that I needed the fancy space and all the candles and all the stuff. And, that's actually, so the beautiful thing about Reiki is its simplicity. And I think sometimes when I say this to students, if we're getting all in the way with that, we just need to, pare it right back, get back to, almost like get back, sit in gasho, get back to what and connect. That's, ground yourself. And in fact, for me, I'm going to talk about sitting in gasho, because for me, this bringing the hands together in prayer position, usually with my feet flat on the ground, or if I'm standing, or even if I'm, sat cross-legged, it's different. But just bringing the hands together in gasho has become one of those. It's almost like a somatic movement for me. It's kind of like a signal to my body, my mind, my spirit. We're coming in. We're connecting. This is sacred space time. So I just, it's just, that automatic reaction that my body, mind, and spirit go into when I bring my hands into gasho. So it's just doing it now is like, oh, it really brings me into center, which is obviously, where I make the best decisions from, where I feel connected, where I can get myself intuitively in the space and guided. So yeah, just going off on a tangent there with gasho.
Very good. So 20 years of Reiki experience, plant medicine, creative shamanism, herbal medicine. As you are out working, sharing this gift of Reiki, what has been a common misconception about your work?
Well, actually, I'll speak to a few things. So certainly when you work with shamanic work, and actually even Reiki to some extent, we're getting, we can receive a lot of information because we're channeled for the energy. And I find a common misconception, this is, for people learning, not necessarily people receiving, but actually even for people receiving, many people say, well, I'm not a visual person. I don't see things. I'm not going to get this, or I can't intuitively receive information. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get the most from it. So that, I think, is a huge misconception amongst people who want to maybe get into shamanism, or develop their intuition and their and start sort of channeling and being guided. We have so many more senses than just this inner vision, and that is something that as a Reiki practitioner or as a shamanic practitioner, it's something that you develop over time. And so we don't have to be a visual person. As it happens, I am a really visual person. Sometimes when I'm in my Reiki state, it's like a movie is happening, but also I receive information through my body. I hear things in my inner ear. I have sensations in my body, like we all might feel things, or our ears might pop and things like that. So there are so many different ways that we can experience and we can receive information as channels and healers. And that's been a huge misconception. And I think, and I'll just speak to connecting with plants. So again, there's this, I think one of the things I want to say about connecting with plants is that what we have to do is we have to feel our way rather than think. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't know anything about plants. I couldn't tell you what that tree is over there. Or I only know roses and sunflowers, And actually, I was kind of the same. I didn't realize that I was into plants until the kind of plants really were leading me. And it was really through how I was feeling. And I just allowed myself to be led by the plants. And I always say we have to feel our way and not think our way. So it's always really good, obviously, to look up the information in books and see what other experts are saying about plants and, get into the science of things. But actually, when we allow ourselves to be guided and just open to create these connections that we have with the natural world, that's kind of where we are when we're magically led. And that's kind of really when in that liminal space, the magic starts to happen for us. So that's definitely a misconception. Like, you don't need to know anything about plants. You just need to be able to open your heart and to feel your way. And also, I think as well, I think that the problem is these days, people do want to kind of learn things in a weekend. They want to do things really quickly. And sometimes it can happen that we kind of do get these huge downloads of information, and suddenly we do receive information in a really rapid way. But other times, especially with the plants, and also to a certain degree when we work with spirit guides in the shamanic practices, it's about developing relationships. And if you've only met something once over the weekend or connected, if I've only sat with my oak tree twice in the last month, then I haven't really got a great connection than if it was, like a friend I speak to every day or have known for the last 10 years. So this is where we kind of, that our sort of 21st century, I need it now kind of mentality, it doesn't really work. Because I think certainly, there's a lot to be said for time and experience and developing relationships. Yeah.
Right. And there's many systems out there that you can within a weekend, or 2 days or 3 days and go out and immediately teach. So you make a good point of that, of cultivating that relationship with the energy, right? And
well, I think, even with Reiki, we can learn at Reiki in a weekend. We can get attuned, in an hour, boom, we're attuned, and we can get Reiki will flow. But it's through over time, isn't it, that we develop our own special kind of relationship with Reiki. We understand how it feels for us. We can read books that will tell us, oh, it's going to be like this, and it's useful for this ailment, and this is how we can do this way. But it's only through our personal practice and that we start to develop it's also our own unique style of Reiki as well. And like, certainly for me, that's come through with plants and the drum and things like that. But so for many of my clients, especially, I don't know if you find this, when you're teaching and you sort of say, oh, there's some case studies for people to do, to experiment with. And there's always a big groan, isn't there, that we have to do case studies. And I just think they're the most magical opportunities for people to, it's like, well, if you do a case studies, you get so much experience, you develop your confidence, and you get to know all different types of energy and situations, and you get to know stuff about yourself and how energy feels. It's really amazing. So it's like when I'm trained in reflexology as well, and I remember as part of my training we had to do 100 pairs of feet. And I tell you, after 100 pairs of feet, I was like, wow, okay, I get it. I'm in the groove now. And it's kind of like that with Reiki, isn't it? Even though we can learn it in a weekend, we actually develop ourselves as a channel, as a Reiki practitioner, over time. We're still growing, aren't we? We're still learning. Reiki's still showing us what it truly means,
Right. It's that journey. So you have had students, clients, you have written books, and you have been a part of so many people's own healing journey. What has been the biggest challenge, or rather struggle, you faced in your own healing journey?
Oh, well, that is a big question, isn't it? I think actually for me, it comes down to confidence. And that's why I said I was really like a slow burner with Reiki, because I just didn't feel confident in myself. And I actually remember, when I first started out, I remember, almost not being able to look people in the eye when they came through the door to have a treatment with me, because I was so shy. And so I really would have, at that time, with hindsight, you think, God, I really would have benefited from a coach, or, someone, a really strong mentor holding my hand saying, yeah, you can do it. But Reiki, Reiki showed me the way. I kept going. And I think, yeah, a fear of being seen as well is one of the things I've had. But, publishing my books was like, wow, you're really out there now. And it was almost, I found it quite amusing, because I was like, there you go. You've got a little bit of a fear of being seen, which I think a lot of people have. That's not like that unusual. But and then I was laughing, because I think not only have you published a book that says, hey, this is me, I'm out there, but you've published a book about something that's quite unusual. You published a book about talking to plants. And, that's actually, it's much more mainstream than it was. This was in 2018 when this was published. So it's still a little bit, so I'm like, wow, it felt like I was coming out of the closet to my parents. This is what I do. They obviously know I do shamanic work and healing, but I don't think they really knew the extent of my plant spirit connections, and to make a whole book of it, that was really interesting. And then, having, those classic situations where you're at, like your parents' house, just visiting, and then they were, have some friends over, family friends, who've known me since I was 5 years old, and they're all delighted to see me, asking me how I am, what am I doing these days, and there's me, sharing, oh yeah, well, I've written this book about plants that speak, it's stuff like that. And that was, so again, all of this is part of my journey, and it's part of just learning, and also it's really fundamentally about self-acceptance, isn't it? And and stepping into my power. So that's where I've been kind of rocking and rolling on my journey, and always but it's what I love about Reiki is it's so I find it very nurturing. And, I mean, I Reiki, I'm Reiki every day. Feel like that's the nicest thing about going to bed, isn't it, at the night? Because that's when I do my Reiki. It's when I'm lying in bed at night. I sort of think, oh, I'll read a bit and then I'm just going to do some Reiki. And so I feel that, that has kept me, or helped me with my challenges, definitely.
Wonderful. So, combining over these 20 years of all these wonderful modalities that you do, and as you stand here on your journey looking back, what do you wish your younger self knew about your current profession?
I was thinking about this question and it made me laugh because I think, my younger self had no idea that this profession even existed. And that's what I find it's so fascinating. The idea of being a Reiki practitioner or a healer or someone who's teaching about energy or shamanism, like that was not something that was on the career register at school. I remember actually there was something about, I remember reading something about homeopathy and herbal medicine. So that did exist. And then all the fact that, we're able to talk over Zoom. I have an online school where people can, do video lessons, and then we can have online conversations like this. I just think, that wasn't even in I wasn't able to imagine it. And this is what actually is so fascinating. So what I would say to my younger self is dream big, actually expand this limited version of yourself, and work on those limited beliefs, basically start to really step into your power and be who you are. Because I think for such a long time I was kind of living under a bit of a shadow and a little bit shy in the corners, and I didn't have that confidence, so I kind of wasn't creatively dreaming and visioning. And I feel that that's what I'm living. I'm living some sort of amazing creative vision. The fact that I'm able to connect with people on the other side of the world through this computer and you can see me, it's just fascinating, isn't it? And the fact that we can send healing to each other, it's just amazing. We could have never dreamt this up. Even when I learned Reiki 20 years ago, we weren't doing this. It wasn't an option. And this is why I find it interesting, when I'm teaching people, we're teaching Reiki too, and we're learning about, how to send distance Reiki. I kind of say, well, back in the day when I was taught, we were taught, whereas these days it's like, well, let's discuss the options you've got. You could work over Zoom, you could work, there's all, whereas back in the day it was like, you had to get a photograph of somebody and beam Reiki to it and write the symbols on, or use a teddy bear, but you still needed, it's very different. So I would tell my younger self, get creative. The blocks that are holding you back are actually just not true. They are not your divine self at all. Step into your power, get creative, and start dreaming and visioning big, because so many amazing things can happen that we can't even sort of dream of, because they're kind of out there. And I actually feel that we're moving into this age, aren't we? We're astrologically, we're really expanding our consciousness as a collective. We're kind of we talk about creating a new earth, and this is, as particularly as healers and light workers, we're at the forefront of this. So it's kind of, it's our job to call on people, to gather people, to say, yes, come on, let's just get rid of all the garbage that we've been carrying and start shining our lights. Because if we shine our lights together, we get to see things from a new perspective, and we get to really create the earth that we dream of, and kind of almost like unlock these talents that we've got inside that we never knew existed. And I feel that that's what Reiki has really helped me do. It's really helped me connect with or get closer to that truth of who I am. And so it's almost like I'm still going, and that's where it's sort of guiding me in, definitely.
Yeah, definitely taking you places you never imagined, right?
Yeah,
And trusting the process the whole way.
totally.
So when it is time for you to get an energetic tune-up, what are some qualities that you look for in a Reiki practitioner or energy worker?
Oh, wow. Like integrity, actually. Yeah, I'm much more cautious now about connecting with people for I love to get a recommendation from somebody. I like to go word of mouth. The kind of big sales pages and all the words and all the bells and whistles don't really attract me. It has to be a feeling. I have to kind of really feel, and sometimes I'll tune in or pick an oracle card just to sort of feel for, does this feel like the right connection for me? But I feel like, qualifications, experience, that kind of thing, it's really important. If I see someone who's got like an amazing looking course or beautiful Instagram page, and yet I go to their about page and they're not really telling me where they've been training and how, I feel like still I say this because I know that a lot of information can come through. We can channel so much information. I know that doesn't have to come from specific training, but I feel like we really have to be very cautious isn't the word, just really kind of centered when I met. So I have to be really centered when I make decisions to work with people. But often, I mean, over the years, you see, I'm really fortunate. I've got lots of students who I trust because they're brilliant and very talented, and people who I've trained with myself in shamanic trainings and things. So I sort of feel like I've got a really lovely network of people who I can call on to help me when I need it. And that this is the thing that I suppose for a while it took me a bit of time to learn, is that it's so beautiful as a Reiki practitioner to get to receive, isn't it? We don't, even though we give ourselves Reiki and we can be very aware of the things that we need healing with, actually getting out of your own way and receiving is part of the process. It is part of the journey, and it's part of that community which we're all creating.
Beautiful. So a teacher that offers trainings, you offer retreats, you have give sessions, you're of service to so many people. What advice would you give someone who is just entering this path of service, who is just entering this profession?
Oh, I would, well, as I said, be discerning, but also be, like I said, like really work on yourself, because we get in our own ways and that will really slow us down. And also to be authentic, because I think I spent, and I spent a while getting a bit lost, if you like, in the noise of online healing work, shall we say, or just the whole online world, whether it's social media, whether it's creating a fancy website, whether it's this and that and the other. And in a sense that throws you off. So it almost like really be true to yourself. Don't try and follow someone else's brand of Reiki or healing. Really tune in and listen to your soul, listen to what is you are being guided to do, because we're all unique. So it's great, we're all attuned to Reiki, but we all have a unique way of offering Reiki. We all have a unique vibration, so different clients are going to be attracted to us. And I think for a long time I was allowing myself to be lost in the kind of, oh, well, I'll do it this way because this is the way everyone else seems to be doing it, rather than really thinking to myself, well, actually, what I want to be doing is this, so I feel that it's really an important to, kind of, we're continually, so my advice would be just really work on yourself, look inward. What is it that you truly want to do? Because, what do you feel, ask yourself what you're really feeling called to do, and then find a way to make that happen. Call in help, and start to trust that, because I feel like the decisions that I make through leading with my heart, I'm doing them because I feel guided to do this. Those are the ones that work for me. But the times I've said, oh, well, I suppose I ought to run a workshop on this because blah, 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 then that, I know now, well, it's probably not going to work so well. And really, we have to really trust in the path. And we have to trust. And we also have to, the other advice I'd say is to surround yourself with cheerleaders, people who are on your team. And so, it doesn't always have to be Reiki practitioners or healers. It can be friends and family who just love you and are fascinated by you and see you doing this amazing thing that they don't really understand, but they see the way it lights you up, and so they support you. Because actually, sometimes I know that in the healing world, we can get so in our own ways and we can get competitive. We can go into shadow around kind of, worrying, oh no, you're a Reiki practitioner too. Oh, you're going to steal my clients. We can get into that. So actually it's very beneficial to sort of have the cheerleaders who are, the muggles sometimes, you know what I mean by that, who just love you for being you, and all the beautiful, wonderful, wacky healing stuff that you do, the energy stuff, the spirit guides, the dragons, whatever it is, they just go, yeah, whatever, come on, let's go and have a coffee together. I've got something to show you, and they kind of bring you back down to the other side of life. And that's really, really important. And especially also, though, just to speak to, when we've got these really precious ideas and got these really precious visions, just remember, be really mindful about who you share them with, because if you're sharing them to people who are quite conservative and they're not going to get it, then they're just gonna not really be enthused by your vision. So be really careful about who you share your sort of deepest desires with, and make sure that they are the people who will be excited for you and cheer you on no matter what.
Very good. I like how you said about, making it your own as you, approach things. When I was a very new yoga teacher, I found myself kind of mimicking almost my teachers. And some of it resonated with me, some didn't, until I got into that rhythm and said, you know what? This isn't called to me anymore. I got to do my own thing, to have that courage to kind of make it your own with that. And then having that support, those cheerleaders, as you said, around you to cheer you on in the path. So very, very good advice that are those who are just starting out. So our next question is, what books do you recommend?
Oh, wow, wonderful. Well, actually, I was going to say that your listeners are probably very used to Reiki books. So I was going to recommend, I'd recommend mine, obviously. But for shamanic work, there's a teacher called Sandra Ingerman. She's written so many. She's amazing. And she is a great place to start if people are interested in getting into shamanism. And she's written so many. In fact, one of my favorites of hers is called Walking in Light. And it's really simple practices about connecting with the natural world, actually, and sort of feeling that the energy, that vibrancy that connects us. So that's a really lovely book. And also for the herbal books, so for the plant books, the amazing herbalist Rosemary Gladstar. She's a bit of a kind of legend, if you like, and she has some beautiful books on actual, herbal medicines and things. And also, I love very much Pam Montgomery. She was a lady who really inspired me when I had my flower farm. And she wrote a book called Plant Spirit Healing, which shares really about how we can connect with plants, just as my book Plants That Speak, Souls That Sing does. So those are some directions for people to go in.
Wonderful. So what other services do you offer? Do you offer any classes, events, trainings?
Yeah, so, well, my big thing every year is the Plant Spirit Summer School, which happens in June. In my beautiful garden space, but also throughout the year I do run. There'll be other trainings here in Scotland, and also the thing that I love is like sort of working, if you like, quite deeply with people. So to come for a one-to-one retreat here with me in Scotland, stay in the be in the garden space. This is the healing garden space, so that is a kind of individual thing to do. And I also. Well, I suppose really at the moment I have an online school, so there's some online courses for Plant Spirit Reiki and for the Shamanic Reiki drumming. And actually, if anyone has purchased any of my books, there is a discount for people to have the book to do the course. You just get in touch with me and I give you a discount code. So that's quite handy if you want to introduce plants, or if you want to introduce the drum into your practice. But the thing that I run now is I have a community on a platform called Substack. And actually what that is there's a small membership fee that people can pay. And every month we have an online Zoom together, which is the Sacred Circle, which can be a seasonal ceremony, or it might be a healing, it might be meditation or a shamanic journey. So that is something that happens monthly, which is, it's like a new thing, really. I've only just started it this year, but that's kind of where I'm focusing my attention at the moment, because that's what I just feel guided to, teach and share through a more sort of expansive way. So, but I'm sure I'll be developing more courses soon. But for now, that's where it's at.
All right, beautiful. So, where can someone find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you if they're interested in a session or if they want to look into about your retreat? Where can we find you?
So my website is fayejohnstone.com, which I'm sure you'll post up so that people can read it, FAYJOHNSTONE.com. And also you can find me on, like I said, Substack. If anyone here uses the Substack platform, you can find me on there. I'm under Faye Johnstone, and my Substack is called Soul Awakenings, and it's my journey with awakenings. And I post kind of several times a month about my connections in the garden. And like I said, we have this once a month healing Sacred Circle community there as well. So those are the places that you can contact me. And I might share some photos of the garden a lot on Instagram, and I'm Plants That Speak on Instagram is how you can find me there.
All right, wonderful. Well, Faye, thank you so much for taking this journey with me. This ends our part together. And I'm going to pass you over to my co-guide, Dina, who has 3 social media questions for you. So I narrow it down from our listeners and some Reiki students. So, Dina?
Hi, thank you so much. I have been so enjoying everything that you've been saying. It so resonates. I'm really excited to ask these questions. So the first one is, as a creative shaman, can you tell me a little bit about your work?
Yeah, certainly. So that really means, I suppose what it means is I've kind of put all the tools that I've learned over the last, 20 years kind of into one bundle. And so when somebody works with me, we can connect with Reiki and energy healing. Creative shamanism basically means it's a process of really being connected to the web of all things and really deeply listening to what's kind of there when we're kind of in that field. So, and it's also about wholeness. So we might have to retrieve pieces of soul. We might have to work with power restoration, bringing power back. So there's all sorts of different shamanic techniques that might happen within that. And I work with the spirits of the plants to bring healing. And I work with the drum. The drum is like my primary tool, the drum and the rattle. And I work with bells and my voice as well. So it's all kind of part, if you like, of the package. But the plants do play a really large part in that. As bringing it all together, because it's about wholeness. It's about bringing back the harmony for everybody.
That's amazing. I really love to hear more about that, and witness it, experience it myself. So you are the author of 3 books. Can you tell me what inspired you to write Plant Spirit Reiki?
Sure. Well, actually, I wrote it because I was doing it, and I thought I'm just going to write all this down, because this just is like a manual that will help people do it themselves. And even though it's got sort of cool Plant Spirit Reiki, and it mentions Reiki, and it talks to Reiki practitioners, it also talks to, I wanted it to be a kind of a starting point for practitioners of, counselors or massage therapists who weren't necessarily connecting with Reiki, but they were seeing clients. And it's this idea of, how can we connect our client with the natural world, like without having to be a qualified herbalist, without prescribing herbal medicines? Because I felt that I was doing it, and it inspired what I was inspired by. When I was running the flower farm in Nova Scotia, I set up a treatment space in my living room. And it was just amazing how people coming to the space, or the part where you're preparing and you're kind of sitting in gasho, or I would have a little walk around, perhaps get some fresh air, and I'd always find certain plants seem to be speaking to me and sort of going, hello, can I come into the treatment space? That is how the practice started sort of happening, and then it went from there. And so the book was really just like, well, I'm just going to write all this down and see if it does anything. And in a sense, so writing those 3 books that I've written has come quite easily, because it's stuff that I do, it's stuff that I teach. So it's not, it's not fictitious. I'm just like writing down what I do in the practice. So it's kind of, they've all come about quite organically, my books, which is amazing. I feel really, really blessed.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome. Okay, so the third question is, I mean, by the way, I could visualize all of that. You have recently published a book, Shamanic Reiki Drumming. Can you explain Shamanic Reiki drumming and how it can be used in a session? This is my favorite question for you to hear about.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? I think a lot of people are actually quite excited about the idea of shamanism and working with the drum. And, it's something which seems to appeal to us. And I really feel it's because it's just connecting us to this original heartbeat, to this frequency that we carry inside. So in the book, I talk about the drum. I talk about the practice of shamanism, and the drum happens to be, just one of the many, many tools and techniques that shamanic practice can make use of. So I'm talking specifically about the drum because, so what's great is that when we work with the drum, so we have this access to the shamanic world through the repetitive beat of the drum and this expanded state of consciousness that the drum brings about. But also we've got sound healing, we've got Reiki, we've got all these other sort of things happening when we bring it into the treatment. So in the book, I talk about various different ways that we can bring it in. And it's really wonderful to bring it, you can even bring the drum in simply as a way to relax somebody before a treatment. Just that repetitive beat of the drum over a client's body can really helps shift the brain waves, and it helps, bring harmony into the body, because we're an elaborate orchestra, our bodies. We know this. We're energy practitioners. We know that there are different vibrations and frequencies carried in the body. And the way I look at it is, I look at it this way: we are, something can happen, like we can carry trauma, or so we can have an accident, and then all of a sudden, or we can carry a pain that we've suppressed and we don't want to think about that. That's too painful. I'm suppressing it. And it can kind of lodge itself in the body, and it can lodge itself, let's say it lodged itself in my knee, and that then might manifest as pain or, something more serious. And the drum will help bring back the original frequency. It kind of helps us remember the original frequency, which is actually then also on a metaphysical level, helps us remember that original frequency of who we are, like who we were before society said, no, you can't do that. You have to be a really good girl and you have to do life like this. So I find the drum really, really powerful to bring into a session. But normally the simplest way, a very simple way, like I said, is to work with clients in meditation. And actually that is how I started to work with the drum originally, because I was teaching meditation and I could see everybody struggling. And I thought, oh God, I'm just going to bring my drum. I just knew that if I started with the drum, it was really going to shift the brain waves, to help them get into that state of deeper connection. And then, but another way to bring it into the treatment, for example, is to start with Reiki. You can use the drum to scan over the body, to feel for different resonance, different changes in the drum beat. You can ask a client, how does that feel? Do you notice it in any part of your body resonating? So it's quite interesting. I find when we work with the drum with the client, it's a little bit more interactive than kind of somebody's jumping on the couch and go, right, I'm just going to receive Reiki now. This is my intention. Bye. I'll go for a snooze, for 45 minutes. The drum is sometimes a little bit more interactive because we're sort of asking them for feedback, and we're we're getting them to be involved in their healing. So often, I call it like a bit of a Reiki sandwich. We can start with Reiki to relax the client, and then we can bring the drum in to just, go over the body, basically drumming around the body. But if people are going to practice this, I suggest read my book. It's got much more in-depth tips in, but also be really, really careful drumming over the heart and the head. You want to be about 50 centimeters away. Get closer on other parts of the body, but always be mindful, because the drum is really, really powerful. I think this is the thing I want people to remember. Sound is a sound wave, okay, like Reiki is a wave, isn't it? So sound isn't like Reiki. The sound isn't going to stop at my body. It goes all the way through. So we have to remember that it's a vibration that is going into the body. So it's going into the energy body, and it's going deeply into the body. And so it has this ability to kind of shift. And so if I would say, as another sort of word of caution and also excitement, is that if you're going to start working with the drum, expect transformation, because, we know that sound, the particles are going to get all excited, they're going to get shaken, and then in the quiet time, things have started to settle a little bit differently. And it's an amazing way to sort of get up. You know what it's like if you play your favorite record and you start dancing. Things get shaken up. You're going to move stagnation. You're going to shift energy. So it's a wonderful way of shifting energy. And actually, we can use the drum as a way to clear stagnant energy in a room, or even set sacred space. There are so many different ways that we can bring the drum into our practice, and we can bring it into Reiki shares, and have lovely Reiki ceremonies and stuff. It's really fascinating what we can do as another tool, as another tool in our healing box, really.
That's amazing. I work with the drum as well. So I really I have a couple of drums that I play without any formal training whatsoever. Anyway. I do have a question for you. You mentioned something about trusting the guidance, trusting, going with the flow, and something happened right before, and I want to hear what you think about this. So right before I got onto the Zoom, I went in the restroom to put on some makeup, and then I had turned on the computer, and then I went in the restroom to put on makeup, and then I came back in here and I found my selenite wand just sitting here on my table. I do not have any recollection of me moving it, grabbing it, and moving it. I'm like, how did this arrive here? And I told Tracy, and she's like, just wait, trust the process. And then you mentioned trust the process. So I'm just wondering, and then I wound up stacking all of these little skulls on it while I was listening to you. But anyway, I was wondering if you ever have any wild things like that happen where things just wind up moving on their own, and anything else you want to share?
Oh, I love that. My goodness. Yeah. Gosh, you think, gosh, yeah, where do I start there? Lots of wacky things. Actually, there's a really cute thing that happened to me. I was this is a silly thing. It was when I was having a walk, and I was thinking about nature spirits, and I was thinking about kind of connecting with them, and maybe I should sit down and do meditation, all those things. And it was really funny. Something hit me on the head. An acorn. It was like an acorn was thrown at me and hit me on the head. And I looked around and I'm like, what? Like it was really, so it was really funny. And I sort of didn't do anything about it. I think I might have, I can't remember sort of what I did, but I know I did a bit of drumming and, by another tree. And then I remember on the way back, where the acorn had hit me, I was sort of looking around again, because I was thinking, oh, it was here that it happened. And I looked down, and on a very flat rock, there was these leaves laid out as if somebody had placed leaves, but they weren't on the tree. There were leaves that were placed on this rock, like oak leaves, just placed. It was fascinating. And you think, hang on, I didn't do that. And then go, well, did I? Did I do that? I just can't remember doing that. So it's funny, these things. And actually, so the thing to do, and because one of my shamanic teachers, she always used to be very frustrating because you'd take things like this to her, or you'd say, I've had this dream, or I've had a journey, and I've done a meditation, and this happened, blah. And you sort of say, she'd say to her, well, what do you think? What do you think it means? And she'd always say, and this is what I say to my students, she'd say, well, what do you think it means? You've got to go and you've got to sit with that, and you've got to, the message for you. And it's so true, isn't it? We so often want to give our power away by asking somebody, what do you think? Do you think that's a good sign? Or do you think it means this? And so she'd always say, what do you think? She'd say, well, why don't you ask your guides about that? Why don't you sit with that and meditate on that? Ask Reiki, and that's what we have to do. But when we have to kind of train ourselves, I think we're all in training really to remind ourselves, to trust this beautiful intelligence that we are. But we so often give our power away. And, unfortunately, our society does condition us to do that, and I think actually that's part of our roles as teachers and light workers is to be like, no, we're helping people access their own power. We're not saying, oh yeah, you need to do it my way. We're saying, yeah, let me help you access that beautiful light within you so that you can work out what you're going to do with it, and where it's supposed to shine and where it's going to light up the world.
I love that. Is there anything else you want to share before we turn it back to Tracy? That was amazing.
Oh, well, should I share this? Because I pulled an oracle card before I came on, just for fun, because I was like, oh, these are on my desk. I'll pull the card. And they are from the Rebecca Campbell deck called Work Your Light. I don't know. Oh, God, so exciting. We're going to have to email after this, aren't we? So the card that I pulled actually says, break the chain. And it's all about ancestral patterns, healing, and rewriting the future. And that's just so empowering, isn't it? I love that bit, rewriting the future. And I feel that that's the energy of this year is really saying to us, you know what, you don't have to carry that rubbish with you anymore. You don't have to carry that baggage. You can say, no, that's not my stuff. Thank you very much. And I'm this is the way I envision, and this is kind of like our message for the earth now, isn't it? So yeah, break the chain, everyone, break the chain and rewrite the future. That's really cool, isn't it? I don't think you can really see it.
Oh my gosh, that's so perfect, so synchronistic, so what I was just talking about. So I have no idea. But yeah, I'm so grateful that all of this happened, and thank you. I'm so grateful that I got to be the co-guide. And yes, let's connect, please. I've been thinking this whole time, oh my gosh, I want to have a chat with you. So we have a lot in common and all that. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, it's lovely to meet you both. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Faye, so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on this journey. We really appreciate it.
I've had great fun. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Well, our wonderful listeners, if you would like your question featured on our show, reach out at www.readysetreiki.com, and maybe your question can be featured on the show. And also check out Feather Sister Wellness that offers a variety of yoga classes, yoga trainings, Reiki, and Reiki trainings. So my co-guide is
Dina Fortune.
And I'm Tracy C. Wright, and this has been Ready Set Reiki.